You can say now that you went to a further mikveh, so it took you longer. You can come later.
You can go to the ocean.
The ocean.
And the mikveh
We have a...
You can go to the mikveh. Can we go to the swimming pool?
You can go wherever you want. I'm just saying the Pico mikveh is closed. That's all I'm saying. The Pico mikveh is closed, the men's mikveh. Okay, let's go. Back to this. Back to Halachos Pesach. Okay, we're discussing Koshering Kalim. We discussed it. There's Hagala and there's Libun. The difference between Hagala and Libun halachically is Hagala spits it out versus Libun, the burning process that actually destroys it. And therefore the halachic difference between them in a very practical way is anytime you do Hagala, which is the purging hot water process, you need to wait 24 hours before the koshering is done. Why do you need to wait 24 hours? Because we're afraid that when the taste through Hagala comes out, so what is stopping it from going back in? It comes out, but just when it comes out, it can go back in. So what's the problem with that? So the Gemara says, and Shulchan Aruch says, there's a rule in halacha, Aidi the Torah lemiflat leibola. Because somebody is busy spitting out, in other words, the vessel is spitting out, so then it can't absorb in because it's going out. Like we all know, when you talk, you can't hear. Because you're talking, it's impossible to hear. So, but the problem is, what happens, let's say it takes 10 seconds for everything in the walls to come out. The problem is, you might leave it in there for 15 seconds. And if you're going to leave it in there for 15 seconds, after the 10 seconds that it's not spitting out anymore, it might be going back into the vessel. So because of that, the halacha is practical halacha I'm talking. You need to wait 24 hours before you kasher the kelim. Why? Because then the taste which is coming out after 24 hours, we learned, is a blemished taste. So therefore, when it comes out, the taste that's coming out is blemished. Even if it goes back in, it really doesn't matter because it's not really a chometzdik taste, it's a blemished taste. So on Pesach, it's over machmir of Eina ben Yemei. But before Pesach, it doesn't matter. Therefore, you have to kasher kelim before Erev Pesach because of all these dinim involved. Libun, on the other hand, the burning process, because it destroys what's in there, so then you're not afraid it's coming out and go back in and it's blemished, not blemished. So therefore, you don't need to wait 24 hours prior to the time you do Libun. Now, what's with Libun Kal? You learned the lighter level of Libun that it only gets the kash nisrav bay, that a straw or piece of paper on the upper, in other words, like this, if I'm doing Libun Kal on this keli, and I'm doing it here with the blowtorch, so then if a paper that I put on the other side or a straw or anything will turn brown, that's enough. Other times it says Yatzuledes bay is enough. But there's a machlekes in Poskim. What do you do by Libun Kal? Do you have to wait 24 hours? Or do you not have to wait 24 hours? Libun Gomor, everybody says you don't need to wait 24 hours because it mamish burns the Isser. But what happens with Libun Kal? But according to the Alter Rebbe, even Libun Kal does not need 24 hours. You can do Libun Kal the same day. You don't need to wait 24 hours. Huh?
Libun Kal is boiling in a pot of water?
No, boiling in a pot of water is called Hagala. Libun Kal is, you don't make it red hot. You make it hot enough that if you touch it with a straw or something, whatever it is, then it would burn it or turn brown or... There's a whole thing in Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Sometimes Alter Rebbe says Libun Kal is Yatzuledes bay. Sometimes he says Kasha Nisraf. There's a whole thing they say from the Rebbe Rashab explaining the differences between Libun Kal, why sometimes it says you need Yatzuledes bay and sometimes you need Kasha Nisraf. Depends how clean it is. If there's a little rust, then it's a little bit different. Whatever. Bottom line is that in order to do Libun Kal, you don't need to wait 24 hours. To do Libun Gomer, for sure, according to all opinions, you don't need to wait 24 hours. And therefore, but Hagala, you need to wait 24 hours before you kosher the material that you want to kosher. So let's say you have a stainless steel sink and you want to kosher it with Hagala by pouring hot water all over it, as we learned, whatever. So then you need to make sure that the sink wasn't used for 24 hours for hot. Cold is not a problem because cold doesn't get absorbed within it. But if somebody uses the sink for 24 hours, So then the problem is that you can't kasher it until another 24 hours pass. So therefore, in a practical way, if you're planning to kasher your stainless steel sink, and you want to make sure there's no hot water used, the best, because this, as I mentioned to the women, there's something called men and housekeepers and kids. They are the ones that make all the problems in the kitchen. The men, the housekeepers, and the kids, because they mix up this and that. So the only way you're going to make sure that your sink is not used for hot for 24 hours is by turning off the hot water underneath the sink. It's the only way you're going to make sure. And you also have people that will take from the kettle and just pour it down the sink. So you need to cover the sink with something just to remind people they shouldn't forget and put hot water down the sink. No, I'm very, very practical. I know this from experience. It's very practically speaking. You need to close the hot water underneath the sink, and you need to cover the sink somehow, just with a covering that people should remember not to pour anything hot down the sink. Because if they do, you have to wait 24 hours more.
Probably if you cover the whole kitchen sink.
If you're covering the whole kitchen sink properly, then halachically you don't need to pour hot water around it. Some people do both. They'll pour hot water all around it, and they'll cover it. Because, some materials are not kasherable, but they'll do it anyway, maybe b'diavad, whatever. So that's the story with the sinks. And by the way, while we're talking about sinks already, the sink, even if you have a stainless steel sink, or if you don't have a stainless steel, whatever, the faucets used to be metal. Now, metal is a kasherable material for Pesach. Plastic for Pesach, it's accepted now in the world. You don't kosher plastic for Pesach. A lot of the faucets look like metal, but they're really not metal, they're plastic. A lot of faucets, especially the new ones, are actually plastic rather than metal. So you need to ascertain if it's metal or if it's plastic. That's the first thing you need to do. And also, again, even if it's metal, then again, if it wasn't used for 24 hours and you pour hot water, boiling hot water all over it, Bais Din, it's good. People are machmir sometimes to use a hot rock when you kasher the sink and the faucets. But that's a chumrah for Pesach that we do, by the way. But not everybody holds you need to do with Evan Melubin with the hot rock. 1 second. But you have to be careful, because if the faucet is not stained metal, you can't kosher it for Pesach. What do you need to do for Pesach? Let's say it's plastic. So the best thing halachically to do, if it's not used for 24 hours, pour boiling hot water all over it anyway, in case something. And then you need to cover the faucet. Now, what can you cover it? There's a very practical thing, something called cheesecloth. Cheesecake. So much force. Cheesecloth. You need to cover the whole faucet of the sink with cheesecloth. It does go through, by the way. The water goes through. And then you just put a rubber band on it to hold it to the faucet, and that's it. What?
If you don't really wash out the faucet well, you just cover it with cheesecloth, is that good enough?
Wash it out well. You have to wash it out well. You have to clean it.
You don't do that. You just go into an apartment and you're like, oh man, in 2 seconds you just cover it.
No, because covering only helps for what's called balua, for the absorption. Covering is not going to help for what's called be'en, substantial chametz, especially on Pesach.
There is no be'en.
You said it's dirty. Dirty means be'en.
You didn't clean it.
Possible.
It's possible.
It's not Kabbalah that you have to clean it. If it's clean, even if you didn't do it, somebody else did it, it's still clean. But if you tell me you come into a house when the faucet is all dirty, that's a different story. Then you covering it is not going to be enough. Then you actually need to clean it and then cover it. What? Huh? I'm not there yet. So that's what you need to do with the faucets. Now, a lot of faucets have the pull-outs. The faucet pulls out. So in the halacha books, in contemporary halacha books, obviously, they didn't talk about this in 200 years ago, but they say on Pesach you should not pull it out, because that thing you pull out, the metal over there or the plastic, is very hard to clean and almost impossible to kasher. So they write, even if you have a sink that normally the nozzle comes out, you can spritz around with it. For Pesach, you don't pull it out, you leave it closed. And you,
Order a new part.
Or, no, you can order a new part.
Have to do the wrapping.
No. That's if you know how to...
It's one screw at the bottom. It's literally one thing.
You could, but still the inner part is hard to clean. That it goes through.
No. The whole hose. You get a new.
Yeah, the head and the hose.
No.
I know. But it was going through the middle part.
I'm going to say it again. Taking things apart are very easy. Putting them back together, you know the story called Humpty Dumpty? Okay. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. Okay? Breaking things is very easy. Taking things apart is very easy. That's not a kunz. I can tell everybody to take apart everything, and the problem is you got to be able to put it back together. So, and by the way, it was done many times in houses, and the plumbers say every time you do it, you loosen the whole thing, and it's not a good idea. Now, you have the bottom of the faucet. The bottom of the faucet has what's called in English a spigot. Now, this spigot is a round thing you screw on, but if you take it off, there's actually a strainer in there. It's basically to keep in case there's particles in the water, so it doesn't let it go into when you pour the water out of the faucet. So that spigot either has to be changed or covered after you clean it out. Because a strainer, which that really is, a strainer, halachically you can't kosher because it's impossible to clean properly. And if you take it apart, you will see that there is stuff in there that could be chametz. So therefore, either you take it off, which is very easily to unscrew it. You can buy a new spigot, it's very easy to, even that I could do. You screw it back on and keep it from year to year or change it every year, whatever. But if you have a spigot, you have to make sure that you should take off the strainer part of it. And then if you cover the whole end with cheesecloth anyway, so then it's 100% good because nothing's happening with it.